The most powerful aircraft carrier in the world, the USS Gerald R Ford, encounters a massive 12-point storm. Furious winds, waves towering as high as buildings. This storm puts even the most advanced stabilizers and safety systems to the ultimate test. In this video, we'll show you not only how this mighty vessel withstands the forces of nature, but also how the crew continues to live and work aboard during months-long missions. From 24-hour watch duties and maintaining combat readiness to training in the gym, unwinding in the onboard cinema, and even visiting the barber shop. This ship is more than just a steel giant, it's a floating city that never stops, even in the harshest storm. First, a brief background on this. Let's not be afraid of the word, unique ship. The aircraft carrier USS Gerald R Ford was officially commissioned on July 22, 2017. This event marked a new milestone in the development of the U.S. Navy, as the ship became the first in its class, replacing the outdated Nimitz class. The design of the USS Gerald R Ford began back in the early 2000s, and its construction took more than a decade to complete. An important distinction of this aircraft carrier was the introduction of the latest technologies, which significantly increased its combat capabilities and efficiency compared to its predecessors. The creation of the USS Gerald R Ford emphasized the importance of maintaining U.S. naval superiority and also signaled to other world powers the strategic potential of the U.S. Navy. In simple terms, the USS Gerald R Ford cheered up the U.S. allies, boosted their confidence in its secure future, and at the same time made its geopolitical rivals, China and Russia, lose heart. America has clearly shown how far ahead of them it is in the field of strategic naval weaponry. But how will this U.S. pride weather a 12-point storm? What will happen on board during this time? The aircraft carrier USS Gerald R Ford, like other ships of its class, is designed to withstand the harshest weather conditions, including a 12-point storm, the highest category of storm, with waves of more than 10 meters or 33 feet and winds of over 120 kilometers per hour or 75 miles per hour. To cope with such extreme conditions, the ship is equipped with a host of technologies and procedures to ensure its safety and combat readiness. First and foremost are fins or underwater stabilizers, special underwater wings that extend from the hull and create additional stability through hydrodynamic drag. And also a ballast system, with ballast tanks on the sides of the ship, in which water is pumped in and out by computer command by the readings of onboard gyroscopes that track the spatial position of the aircraft carrier. The aircraft carrier command receives a message about the approaching storm in advance from the Pentagon's Weather Service. It specifies the time of the storm's approach and its ballastness. After that, the command is given to move aircraft from the flight deck to hangars below deck and securely fix them there. In addition, all possible objects, ground vehicles, moving technical elements, and equipment are removed or secured on the deck. In storm conditions, access to the open deck for personnel is strictly limited. This is due to the risk of falling overboard in strong sway and wind. If it becomes necessary to go on deck, the crew uses special safety systems. All hatches, doors, and other external exits are hermetically sealed in nautical parlance, sealed to prevent water ingress. So, the aircraft carrier is ready to meet a formidable sea element. And it came. Squally winds and 10-meter waves are crashing down on the ship. The crew are either at their workstations or in their cabins. Despite the stabilization system, which greatly reduces the amplitude of the rocking, the strong waves and wind are still felt and can cause seasickness. This is already a field of activity for the medical service of the aircraft carrier, which we'll talk about later. But it's not just the rocking that affects people. During a storm, the noise on board increases from the wind and waves with force hitting the hull. Add to this the vibration from the engines and the stabilization pumps working at full capacity. And let's assume that all this happens deep in the night, thousands of miles from homeland. What can't be said, but brave men are serving at sea. Now, more about the daily service of these courageous people. Still, thank God, storms don't happen every day. The service aboard the USS Gerald R Ford is round-the-clock and continuous work, requiring from each crew member high discipline and physical endurance. On average, work shifts last 12 hours each, and during that time, service members must perform their duties with the utmost concentration, whether it be maintenance, safety, or flight control. The aircraft carrier has approximately 4,500 personnel on the campaign. This number includes both the ship's permanent crew and air wing personnel. Approximately 2,700 are part of the permanent crew that operates and maintains the aircraft carrier itself, and the remaining 1,500 to 1,800 are pilots and maintenance personnel who are temporarily on board while the wing is deployed. And here's the first fact. An air wing is a separate operational group consisting of various squadrons, fighters, attack aircraft, helicopters, and other aircraft that joins an aircraft carrier during its deployment or combat operations. The air wing is not permanently aboard the ship and is only stationed there during specific missions. After missions are completed and they return to port, the pilots, along with the maintenance personnel who maintain the aircraft, usually return to their bases. Pilots and their crews are subject to a special operating regime during the mission. Depending on combat missions, flights can occur throughout the day and night, requiring high mobility and readiness to take off at a moment's notice. Wing technicians maintain aircraft, repair them, and prepare them for takeoff. Pilots work under conditions of high stress and great physical strain. Periods of intensive combat operations require maximum concentration and endurance. Although rest areas are provided on board, flight crew schedules are often unpredictable, and pilots can spend long hours waiting for or preparing for missions. Permanent crew members are divided into services based on the nature of the work they perform. Most prominently, thanks to numerous YouTube clips, the flight deck service is the most stressful area on the ship. The attendants work in a high-stress environment of high noise, vibration, and hot gases from airplanes, providing takeoffs and landing for fighter jets and other aircraft. Their duties include preparing aircraft for departure, refueling, arming, and maintenance. The following eloquent fact speaks volumes about the strain of the flight deck service. During intense training exercises, and if necessary during combat operations, flight deck personnel ensure that an airplane is launched every 25 seconds. Flight operations can go on for hours, and at any time of day or night, and in any weather. Heat, wind, snow, an aircraft carrier must always be on full alert to deliver an irresistible strike with its aircraft. The flight deck service is only down during a storm, but how people feel during this we have already talked about. Next come the technical and engineering services that keep the USS Gerald R Ford operational. The aircraft carrier is equipped with the latest systems, from a nuclear reactor to complex electrical and mechanical devices. Engineers ensure that all components and units are in good working order, which requires constant monitoring and scheduled maintenance, even in stormy conditions. The engineer's shift is also about 12 hours long, during which time they diagnose systems, troubleshoot problems, and check equipment serviceability. Even the slightest glitch can delay an operation or jeopardize the safety of the crew, so attention to detail and a high degree of skill are a must. Then there is the Security and Defense Service, whose soldiers are responsible for the safety and defense of the ship. Their tasks include monitoring the environment, controlling air defense systems, and defending against potential threats in the air, on the water, and underwater. This requires constant operation of radar, sonar, and other sensors, as well as coordination with Central Command. Medical services are indispensable for long-duration missions. Medical personnel on board are responsible for the health and fitness of all crew members. The ship is equipped with a modern medical center capable of providing primary and specialized medical care. The center has 2 operating rooms, examination rooms, dental offices, and pharmaceutical warehouses with necessary drugs and medical supplies. The operating rooms are equipped with modern surgical equipment to allow for emergency interventions for injuries or illnesses, which is especially important in remote locations. The medical team includes doctors of various specialties, nurses, paramedics, and orderlies who work around the clock to provide medical support in both routine and emergencies. They are ready to provide first aid for injuries, burns, fractures, and surgical operations. The high qualification of medical personnel and equipment of the medical center is eloquently evidenced by the fact that on board American aircraft carriers, they can perform appendectomies, perform bowel resection, ophthalmic operations, and even cardiac and neurosurgical operations. So the aircraft carrier can cope with seasickness. Suppose it is necessary to evacuate the wounded or sick ashore. In that case, the aircraft carrier has helicopters on board, which can deliver the injured to a hospital on land if, of course, the distance to the shore allows. Finally, the last service is the Supply and Logistics Service. It is responsible for all aspects of crew resourcing, including catering, stockpiling, material management, and day-to-day supply. The cooks are responsible for preparing food for the entire crew, organizing the food process, controlling the quality of food, and maintaining sanitary standards in the kitchen. It is easy to calculate the workload that falls on these people. Try to provide at least 3 meals a day to 4,500 people. As we've already said, the standard shift on an aircraft carrier lasts 12 hours. However, during periods of training or combat operations, the work schedule can become even more demanding. At such times, the crew can work in high alert mode when the entire ship operates under a high operational load. This means that there is less time for rest between shifts, and the crew is required to be as focused as possible. But service is service. So, how is the life of these 4,500 people who leave land for many months organized? For example, the crew of the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt spent 160 consecutive days at sea without calling port in 2020. This was due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to maintain crew readiness and safety. Combat readiness is already placed above human comfort. It's axiomatic. Considering that an aircraft carrier can be at sea for extended periods without entering port, providing comfortable living conditions becomes a critical aspect of service that directly affects the ship's combat readiness. Let's start with sleep arrangements. Sleeping compartments, otherwise called cubicles, are provided for enlisted personnel, which usually accommodate 4 to 6 people. Each serviceman has his bunk, closed with a curtain for privacy, as well as a small closet for storing personal belongings. Here you lie in your bunk, and from the blows of 10-meter waves and squally winds, you are separated only by a few inches of ship's steel. Officers live in separate cabins, which are more spacious and include a workstation for preparing reports and working with documents. Senior officers and commanding officers get more comfortable quarters with personal amenities to keep their physical and morale high. Their cabins have 1.5 beds, a bathroom with shower and toilet. There's also a computer with access to entertainment programs or internal communication systems. We think it's cozier than the enlisted personnel when a storm hits. A man has had a good night's sleep, now he needs to eat. The aircraft carrier has several mess halls that provide meals for all crew members. The ship's kitchen must cope with 3 meals a day for 4,500 people. It's easy to calculate how many servings per day are prepared on an aircraft carrier. Menus vary depending on the length of the voyage and the availability of provisions. A standard menu includes meat, fish, vegetables, fruits, hot entrees, salads, and desserts. In addition to the main meals, there are small buffets and snack areas where crew members can grab snacks or light meals between shifts. There is even a Starbucks for coffee lovers. But alcohol is prohibited aboard American aircraft carriers. Of course, all meals are free and not rationed. A soldier has worked a 12-hour shift, and he just needs to relieve the tension, the stress. That's why there are rest areas on board the aircraft carrier, where crew members can relax after a day's work. They help the crew to relieve stress and spend time with co-workers. The level of comfort is evidenced by the fact that the aircraft carrier even has a barber shop, not to mention a library and a movie theater. Of course, there are gyms, and with a view of the ocean. Given the long stays at sea, physical activity helps not only to maintain health, but also to cope with emotional stress. In the gyms, the crew can engage in strength training, cardio exercises, and exercises to maintain overall tone. Now, let's talk about how the USS Gerald R Ford maintains hygiene, which on long sea voyages is a critical aspect to avoid the spread of disease and keep the crew healthy. The aircraft carrier has shower and toilet facilities that are regularly cleaned and maintained. The ship also has laundry facilities where the crew can wash and dry their clothes. This is a mandatory process, especially in hot climates and high physical exertion. Another very important aspect of living conditions is psychological support. There are psychologists and chaplains on board the ship to assist with emotional problems, help manage stress, and support the crew's morale. On this peaceful note, we will finish our story about the everyday life of the crew of this most modern and powerful ship in the world. We hope that with the help of our video, you were able to understand what it is like to serve on it, the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R Ford. As you can see, American designers have tried to create maximum comfort and safety for the crew. But even so, the warship is created for really courageous people. After all, unlike commercial ships, it must fulfill its tasks in any weather, even in a 12-point storm. We will be glad to receive your comments, thumbs up, and subscription to our channel, and we'll see you soon.